Mix it up! Don't let him get away! Alfred, press! Angel kept slipping Alfred's jab. He cocked his head at the last possible instant and grinned as Alfred's gloved fist shot harmlessly over his shoulder. And each time Alfred missed, Angel belted him in the stomach. There was no pain, only anger that drove his teeth deeper into the mouthpiece. The air exploded out of his nostrils and sweat ran into his eyes. He closed his eyes and swung wildly, and Angel, laughing, belted the side of his head guard. "Time!" called Henry. "You're not working your combinations," said Bud, pulling out the mouthpiece. "You've been throwing one punch at a time, and that's no good." "Time!" called Henry, and Bud shoved the mouthpiece back in. Jab, jab, hook. Jab, hook, right. Jab. Hook to the body. Cross the chin. Body. Head. Jab, jab, jab. August, grasping for breath, melted into September. It was cooler in the park at dawn now, but it was hot in the gym. Always hot in the gym. The leather head guard squeezing his temples. The metal protective cup pinching his thighs.
No.
The 16-ounce sparring gloves felt like lead pillows. Angel slipped the jab, and Denny slipped the jab, and Henry screamed, and Bud yelled, and sometimes Donatelli watched, and sometimes he didn't. When Alfred remembered his dreams the next morning, they were always the same. A fly was sitting on top of his nose, and every time he reached to brush it away, he saw he had no hands. 10 seconds left, called Henry. Angel's face, framed in the head guard, bobbed up, mocking him. Last chance for today, thought Alfred. Now! He snapped out a left jab, straight at the moving head, just as he had for weeks. And Angel, as he had for weeks, cocked his head and let it shoot by, never bothering to watch Alfred's shuffling feet. Angel didn't see the right until it was almost too late. When he jerked his head away from his right, the left hook slammed into his face. Angel's head snapped backwards, his face twisted with surprise. His gloves automatically flew to his face. Alfred dropped his right shoulder, took a quick step forward on his right foot, and slapped a short right uppercut into Angel's belly. Angel plunged forward. The months of shadow boxing taken over now. Left, right to the face, hook. And Angel was reeling against the ropes, a drop of blood oozing from his nose. "Time!" called Bud. Jelly clapped. Pete leaned over the ropes and slapped his shoulder. "You're thinking," said Donatelli. "Not bad." "Not bad," thought Alfred, spinning the mouthpiece into Henry's hand. "That's like a medal from anyone else." Jose began unlacing Angel's gloves. "Alfred really catch you one, eh?" "I do it so he feel good," said Angel. "Next time he feels so good he can knock you out," said Jose, winking at Alfred. Angel began chattering in machine gun Spanish. "You did real good," said Henry, unlacing Alfred's glove. "That was the best hook you ever threw." "Not sure I know what I did right." "You've been taking a little step before you threw the hook. Made you off balance. This time, you pivoted. Like this." Henry threw a slow hook and pivoted on his left leg. A crippled leg. "Yeah," said Alfred, practicing it. Yeah. "How do you know?" He tried to keep his eyes from staring down at Henry's leg. "I'm learning too, man," said Henry. Then he noticed Alfred stare and limped heavily away. Stick and move, in and out. Jab, right, jab. Jab, jab, hook. Jab, hook, right. Mix them up. Press. Press! Denny's hands were quick, but his footwork was slow. Stand and fight with him, he'll spin your head around. Stick and move, he doesn't have a chance. "Sorry, Denny," thought Alfred. "My head's not a punching bag for you." "Time!" called Bud. "You have nice moves, Alfred. Very nice moves." "Mr. Epstein!" Old Lou smiled. "I have to hear from the neighborhood how good you're getting, so I came up to see." "Hey, Lightning," said Bud, raising his fist. You ain't been good. You ain't been up for years." "Don't talk about years. What's my boy doing?" "Getting there. He's getting there." "You look good, Lou. Ready to go 10. 10 steps, maybe." "Sure," Bud clapped him on the shoulders. "Saw Kid Ryan last week. He was asking for you. A rematch I won't give him, even after 40 years. A tough one. Remember that night." When Alfred came out the shower, Bud and Lou were throwing slow, creaky punches in the air and laughing. He was dressed and half out the door when Lou called, "Wait a minute, Alfred." Lou took out a little black purse from his pocket, counted out some bills, and pressed them into Bud's hand. Don't tell Ryan where it comes from. Pride he always has. Thanks, said Bud. Take it easy, Lou. How else can I take it? He put a hand on Alfred's shoulders, bracing him as they walked slowly down the steps. On the street, Lou said, You didn't take my advice. Well, Mr. Epstein, you should have your own mind. Do what you want. Ben tells me it takes half the time to sort out the new Monday mornings. How come you suddenly have more energy now? Well, let me figure it out. I have to keep my mind active. You know how to work the register? No. But I can learn. Sure you can learn. Maybe come in a little early tomorrow before we get busy. I'll show you some things.
Yay!
Thank Mr. Epstein. Don't thank me, Alfred. I'm not giving you anything you have to work for. Stick and move. Double jab. Double hook. Cross with the right. Hook over the jab. Slip and stick. Break clean. Move him, Alfred. Jose was not as fast as Angel or Denny, but he hit harder. Twice he fired straight rights through Alfred's guard, stinging, rib-bruising rights that took Alfred's breath away. It wasn't until the third sparring round that Alfred timed the rhythm of Jose's attack, dropped his left arm, catching the right on his elbow. Jose's face was unprotected, and Alfred pumped a fast fist into his mouth. He pivoted on his left foot, and threw the hook into a smooth, short arc. Jose dropped like a sack of potatoes. He was back on his feet immediately, but Donatelli jumped into the ring and grabbed Alfred's gloves. Better go downstairs, he said softly. It is time you are fitted for the custom-made... Chapter 14. At 5:30 a.m., his eyelids snapped open. It was gray and chill beyond the kitchen window. For a moment, he wished it was just another day. Get up, out to the park, suck in the cool October air, and listen to his sneakers cracking over the fallen yellow leaves. He tried to close his eyes. He rolled over into his stomach and buried his face in the pillow. A bird somewhere, lonely and lost, called for his friends. He turned over on his back. The green plaster of the kitchen sink had finally cracked loose, leaving a powdery white hole as big as a fist. He wondered why he hadn't noticed it in 4 months. After a while, the apartment began to stir. First Aunt Pearl, turning heavily in bed for the last few minutes of sleep, then the girls, drowsily untangling their arms and legs. An automobile horn blared downstairs. Garbage cans and covers clanged. A policeman, bored and tired, dragged his nightstick along the bars of an iron fence. A skinny shaft of sunlight came through the window. Sick, Alfred? Feel fine, Aunt Pearl. Ain't you gonna run this morning? Not this morning. Oh? She washed and dressed and woke up the girls. They began wandering between the front room and the bathroom, their eyes half shut and bumping into each other. Such nice little girls, he thought, warmth spreading through his stomach. See that they get some real cute dresses one of these days. You can stay in bed all day? For a while. You'll be late for work. I'm off today. I'll come. Just like that. Ready for breakfast? Just some tea. So as you want your tea in bed? No. I'll get up for it. What's going on, Alfred? Nothing. She let 2 pots clatter to the floor. Alfred's head jerked up. Just want to make sure you're alive, she said. He put his hands under his head and watched them eat breakfast, smiling as the girls kept peeking at him over their cereal bowls. Is Alfred sick? Asked Charlene. Alfred has retired, said Aunt Pearl. Is Alfred going to stay in bed all the time? Asked Sandra. Why don't you ask Alfred? Today, he said slowly, Alfred Brooks is resting himself for his big opportunity for advancement. What'd he say? Asked Paula. He don't know himself, said Aunt Pearl. She dropped a tea bag into a cup and poured hot water over it. She placed the cup on the table. You've been doing so good at the store. They didn't fire you. They did not. You didn't hurt yourself with all them exercises. I did not. She shrugged. Guess you're just a lazy boy. Don't you have any more questions? She pressed her lips together to stop a smile. Us busy people don't have time for quiz shows in the morning. They cleared the table and put on their coats. Aunt Pearl leaned over the bed. You got a secret? I do! Okay, she smiled down at him. I hope it's something good. Tell me later? Tonight. Fine. She touched his forehead. Don't let your tea get cold. He got out of bed, very slowly, stretched, and took the teacup into the front room. He turned on the television set and sprawled out on the couch. He watched 2 cartoon programs and part of an old gangster movie. He was still sipping at the tea, watching an exercise program for women, when Henry knocked on the door. You ain't even dressed yet. It's only 10 o'clock. You don't have to meet Mr. Donatelli till 12. Yeah, I know. Still. Come on, Henry. I'll make you some tea. Relax you. He did not begin to feel himself until they were on the street. His stomach tightened. His lips moved mechanically to smile back at people he knew. They stopped in front of Epstein's and waved at Lou through the plate glass window. The old man left the register and came out. Feel good? Fine. You look good. Get a good night's sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. I don't want you should stand around on the street. See you tonight. Tonight? Why not? Said Lou, squeezing Alfred's biceps. Donatelli was waiting for them at the gym. The room, empty of fighters, seemed huge. You have your card? Right here. Alfred opened his wallet and pulled out the amateur card with a postage stamp photograph. Let Henry hold it. They followed Donatelli downstairs, stopping at the second-floor dentist office. I have a patient now. You better eat without me, Vito, said Dr. Corey. He handed Henry a small box. I made Alfred a second mouthpiece in case he swallows the first. It's not funny, Arthur, said Donatelli. So I'm not a comedian. He winked at Alfred. Don't let these two make you nervous. Donatelli led them to a small luncheonette around the corner. He ordered sandwiches for himself and Henry, 2 soft-boiled eggs, toast, and tea with honey for Alfred. The counterman brought their food to their booth. You're getting to be a stranger, Vito. How's the streeter kid? I don't handle him no more. Too bad. Got any good ones? They're all good ones. Yeah, sure, the counterman laughed. They picked at their food. You feel butterflies in your stomach? Asked Donatelli. No. Like a cold spot. That's good. Means you're on edge. The tea will help settle your stomach. Henry better have some tea. He's got the butterflies. The thin lips parted. It's even better.
Hey!
On the street again, Donatelli hailed a taxi. He gave Henry a key and $3 bills. I'll be up in a few hours. Just make sure Alfred rests. He said something to the driver, and the cab lurched into uptown traffic. Where are we going? Spoon's place, said Henry. Be nice and quiet there. Alfred relaxed in the back seat. This is alright. What happens when you turn pro? You get a Cadillac and a chauffeur? Henry shook his head. When Jelly had his first fight, he came back from the weigh-in by subway. Is Jelly gonna fight again soon? I don't know. Just between you and me, Mr. Donatelli ain't high on him anymore. But he knocked the guy out in 1 round. Yeah, but Mr. Donatelli says anybody can't control himself with food, can't go all the way. He said that to Jelly's face. What'd Jelly say? He just made a joke. You know Jelly. Then he went out and had a whole chicken. Said he wanted to get an appetite for dinner. Alfred looked out the cab window. A breeze had sprung up, whipping flakes of white on the Hudson River. The cold spot grew. Where's Spoon live? Washington Heights? That's in Manhattan. Yeah. Across the river, on a hill, the Ferris wheel of an amusement park stood motionless against a haze gray sky. Henry? Yeah? You know, this is the first time I ever rode in a cab. When I was a kid, I rode in a lot of cabs. How come? My mother used to take me to the clinic in a cab. Oh. For my leg. I had polio, said Henry. Yeah, I know. I've been watching you lately. You don't drag your leg so bad anymore. For the first time Alfred could remember, the grin completely disappeared from Henry's face. He turned away. Sometimes it gets a little better. Just temporary. Cab stopped in front of a 6-story brick apartment building on a quiet, tree-lined street. Henry paid the driver and limped heavily to the lobby elevator. There were more books in Spoon's living room than Alfred had ever seen in a home. The walls were covered with bookshelves up to the ceiling. Magazines and records were neatly stacked around the room. Think he read all these books? I don't know, mumbled Henry, lowering himself into a soft chair. How you feel, man? Me? Yeah. All I gotta do is fight tonight. You? The assistant trainer. You got to do all the worrying, right? Henry brightened a little. Spoon says he'd never get to read all these books if he lived to be 100. But when him and his wife have an argument, all they got to do is look it up and see who's right. What do they argue about? I was here one time before, and she said the first American to get the North Pole was black. And he said, no, the black guy and the white guy stepped on it at the same time. I never heard about it in school. Who's right? I don't know. They were still looking up when I had to go. Alfred laughed. Some argument. One time I was over at this guy's house and his folks got to arguing about cigarettes. And the first thing you know, they were throwing bottles. Bottles? Yeah, whiskey bottles. They didn't hit each other, but they hit this guy and he had to get 9 stitches in his head. Is that James? Said Henry. How do you know? I heard her around. See him anymore? No. Tried to call him a few times, but his folks don't know where he's at, said Alfred. You were real tight. Yeah. He used to be my best friend. What happened? You know how it is. Get older. What do you mean, Alfred? Forget it. You ever go down to the club room? Don't you know what happened? Thought you did. They were having a party down there a couple of weeks ago, making a lot of noise, and somebody called the cops. They busted in there and found marijuana and heroin. Was James there? Yeah, everybody beat it except Sonny. He's so dumb. And some kid named Justin. They got arrested. My father kicked them out. Just a extra storeroom now. Where they all hang out now? They scattered. Alfred pretended to study the books. Many of them were worn around the edges, as they've been handled often. What are you thinking about? Asked Henry. Huh? Oh, nothing much. See what's on TV. Henry got up. I'll turn it on. You gotta rest. He snapped it on. A woman was given a lesson in French. Wanna watch this? Why not? I might have to fight a Frenchman someday. You don't have to talk to him. Just hit him. Yeah. Alpha pointed a finger at Henry. You better watch it. You might have to talk to his trainer or something. Spoon came in a little after 3:30, a briefcase under his arm. I always found the worst part of fighting were those long afternoons, just waiting and killing time. You must have read a lot of them books then, said Alfred. Spoon shook his head. Wish I had. I used to play solitaire. There was one fighter in those days, a pretty good light heavyweight named Junior Ellis, who used to sing along with country and western records before a bout. He said it got his fighting juices worked up. What happened to him? He had a fight with the top contender, an Italian kid, and lost. The next day in the papers, the contender said he won because he sang along with an opera. They were chuckling when a plump, sweet-faced young woman came in. She was carrying a briefcase too. Spoon got up and kissed her. This is my wife, Betty. You remember Henry Johnson? This is Alfred Brooks. Glad you came up. She shook their hands. You men, sit still. I just have to put Alfred's steak on, and I'll be right out. She went into the kitchen. This is a nice place, said Alfred. Thanks for letting us use it. Yeah, we like it here. Betty can walk to school, and I drive to mine in about 20 minutes. Did you get your permanent license? Asked Alfred. You remembered. Yes, I did. I'm taking some courses at night for my master's degree right now. You teach school? And go to school? Asked Alfred. The more you learn, the more you want to know. You ought to think about night school for yourself, said Spoon. I didn't graduate from high school, said Alfred. You can go to high school at night. Yeah? Of course. When you're ready, give us a call. Either Betty or I could find out the night school nearest your home. Or you can do it yourself. Soon, Betty came in with an apron. It's ready. The table was set for one. A large steak sizzled on a plate. There was a bowl of salad, 2 slices of toast, and tea with honey. Go ahead, sit down, Alfred. It's for you. What about everybody else? We'll eat later, said Spoon, while you're taking your nap. If you eat a big meal too close to a fight, there isn't time for proper digestion. Makes you sluggish and slow, and one good punch to the belly and... Belly! Said his wife. She's not the world's greatest fight fan, said Spoon. The steak was thick and rare. He felt funny eating alone. He offered Henry a piece, but Henry just shook his head and watched him eat. He once told him to chew more carefully. The Witherspoons chatted about school and about some boy in Betty's class who suddenly quit doing his homework. When Betty called his mother into school, she found out there had been trouble at home. Alfred was surprised that a teacher could care so much about some kid not doing his homework. He certainly took care of that piece of meat, said Spoon. You still hungry, Alfred? No, thank you, Mrs. Witherspoon. That was real fine. Thanks a lot. Spoon stood up. You'll take a little walk now. Give your body a chance to work on that food. Alfred, Henry, and Spoon strolled around the neighborhood. Men and women were coming home from work in the early twilight. Most of the men were wearing suits and ties. A lot of white people live up here, said Alfred. This is a fairly well-integrated neighborhood, said Spoon. Do you have any white friends? Asked Alfred. A few. Some teachers, some college friends, and a boxer with whom I used to train. Spoon laughed. Once I found out that white boys bled the same color I did, I figured I'd let them move into my neighborhood any time. By the time they returned, Betty had drawn the bedroom drapes and turned down the spread of the double bed. Take off your shoes and loosen your belts, said Spoon. Try to sleep if you can. The room was dark, and the murmur of voices outside the door was too low to make out words. The cold spot returned and grew, an ice ball resting in his stomach. He tried not to think about the fight. He took the cab ride again and thought about Henry, nervous all day and watching over him like a trainer. Dishes clattered and somebody said, "Shh!" It sounded like Donatelli. Everybody's been so nice, he thought. I wonder what they'll say if I lose. The light snapped on. Henry was beside the bed. Okay, Alfred. Let go. Betty shook his hand at the door and wished him luck. And then they were moving quickly, down the elevator into the darkening street. Donatelli had firm fingers on his arm. They slid into the back of Spoon's car. Do you know who I'm going to fight? No. It's these one-night amateur shows. The club in charge matches up the fighters at the last minute. What if there aren't any other lightweights? It's always a possibility, said Donatelli. Dr. Corey and Bud were waiting outside the gym. They climbed in the front, Bud carrying his black satchel, an overnight bag, and a large cardboard box. What's that? The third mouthpiece, said Dr. Corey, in case you swallowed the other two. Arthur! What's the matter with you, Vito? Laughter is the best medicine. Nobody's sick, snapped Donatelli. Alfred felt the tenseness in Donatelli's arm, pressed against his own. An ice ball grew larger and colder. There was little traffic on the streets and over the bridge. The ride ended too quickly in front of a large, shabby building. I'll park the car and meet you afterwards, said Spoon. Good luck, Alfred. Donatelli showed 2 tickets to a sleepy old man at the door, led them through a dark corridor into a large bare room filled with older men, half-naked boys, and cigar smoke. A gray-haired man came over. Good to see you, Vito. This your boy? Right. Alfred Brooks. Brooks, Alfred, he made a mark on a clipboard. Stripped down to socks and shorts, Alfred. The boys in the room eyed each other. The older man called to Bud and Dr. Corey, who waved or shouted back. But Donatelli kept his fingers digging into Alfred's arm. Doctor came over. He thumped Alfred's chest and back, and placed cool round end of a stethoscope over his heart. The boy's alive, Vito. Yeah, snapped Donatelli, his voice edgy. The doctor winked and shone a flashlight into Alfred's eyes, ears, and down his throat. Have you had any recent injuries, illnesses, dizzy spells, diarrhea? Would I bring him here? Said Donatelli. Take it easy, Vito, whispered Bud. On the scale, said the doctor. Brooks, 34 3/4. The gray-haired man marked his clipboard. Brooks, black trunks. Alfred turned to Donatelli. Don't worry, Alfred. We brought both black and white. He handed a ticket to Dr. Corey. You're sitting next to Billy. You don't want me in the corner? Henry's working the quarter tonight. Dr. Corey grabbed Alfred's hand. There is an old saying in... Later, Arthur. Dr. Corey shrugged and grabbed Henry's hand. Good luck. They hurried inside past a door marked White Trunks in Seconds Only. Bud led them down to a room marked Black Trunks in Seconds Only. Half a dozen boys sat and stretched out on wooden benches, surrounded by whispering men. More came in as Alfred pulled up the athletic supporter, protective cup, and black trunks. Bud handed to him on the overnight bag. Henry knelt and laced his white boxing gloves. Hands, said Bud, opening his black satchel. He took out 2 long strips of white cloth and a roll of adhesive tape. Bud and Donatelli each wrapped and taped a hand. Alfred studied a printed poster on the wall. Close your eyes, said Henry, opening a large cardboard box. Something soft and nubby slid over his shoulders. Open. It was a snow-white terry cloth robe. Show him the back, said Bud. Smiling, Henry pulled the robe off and turned it around. Written across the back in red block letters was Alfred Brooks, New York. Hey, man, you look like you just got hit in the face, said Henry. Well, You got a lot of sweat in your eyes, said Bud, all gums. He took a sponge from the satchel and patted Alfred's eyes. Thanks, man. I hope you will, said Donatelli gruffly. Bud, Henry, let's get the blood circulating. It's chilly in here. They were massaging his legs and arms when the gray-haired man came in waving his clipboard. You go on third, Vito. Against who? Kid named Rivera.
Oh, boy!
How old is he? What's he weigh? How many? You want to fight or not? Now look, I don't want some... After all these years, Vito, you think I'm going to pull a ringer on you? Easy, man, said Bud. You know it's nothing personal. We'll take it. Sorry, said Donatelli. Sure, said the gray-haired man. I understand. He looked around the room. Hubbard! Elston Hubbard. A powerfully built welterweight with the Marine Corps emblem tattooed in blue on one massive bronze forearm jumped lightly to his feet. Right here. You're on, boy. Jackson. Sam Jackson. You're next. The gray-haired man turned and left. Hubbard swaggered across the room. 2 older men trailed him. He turned at the door. See you cats in a minute, he said, flashing a mouthful of gold teeth. That's confidence, said Bud out loud. The fighters and handlers in the room laughed nervously. A tall heavyweight, a little soft around the middle, stood up and began to shadowbox. Hands, said Donatelli. He slipped down the gloves one at a time. Alfred's knees began to quiver. How you feel? Whispered Henry. Just fine. The door opened and the roar of the crowd flooded the room. Jackson! The heavyweight shuffled out within seconds. Stand up, said Donatelli. Knee bends. That's it. Go down. Bounce up. That's the way. The door opened again, and Hubert swaggered back in. Took me 1 minute, 20 seconds. Out of shape. Jab, said Donatelli, holding up a hand, palm out. That's it. Good snap. Let's go. The ice began to melt, trickling freezing water into his legs, stiffening the joints. Donatelli's fingers dug into one arm and Bud into the other. The crowd noises grew louder as they walked down the corridor into the back of a square, low-ceilinged meeting hall. Ain't Madison Square Garden, said Bud. Tonight it is, said Donatelli. Jackson and another heavyweight were flailing each other in a lumpy, crooked ring in the middle of a hall. Naked bulbs washed the canvas with harsh yellow light. The rest of the hall was in darkness. Alfred couldn't tell how many people sat in the uneven rows of metal folding chairs. Come on, you bums, someone shouted. The heavyweights pushed and butted each other clumsily. The referee pulled them apart and ducked as a long right arm looped over his head. Jackson fell down and stayed down. He didn't want to get back up, Alfred thought. We're on, said Bud. They started down the aisle, and Donatelli and Bud were pushing him along with their shoulders. They could hear Henry breathing hard behind him, hurrying to keep up. They waited at the ring steps as Jackson stumbled down, his eyes half closed, and they went up into the pool of hot and blinding light. Bud spread the ropes, and Donatelli shoved him through. Rivera was already there, his face blotted out by the lights. He was shorter than Alfred, but very wide and muscular. His legs looked like telephone poles. Stick and run, whispered Donatelli in his ear, but Alfred was listening to the ring announcer. In white trunks from the Bronx, weighing 136 pounds, Joe Rivera. In black trunks from Harlem, New York, weighing 134 3/4 pounds, Alfred Brooks. The soft, warm terry cloth slipped off his shoulders, and Bud's dry stick fingers were stabbing into his back muscles. Stick and run. Don't slug with him. Stick and run. Jab and move. Henry shoved the mouthpiece in. Hands pushed him into the center of the ring. The referee was saying, 3 rounds, 2 minutes each. You know the amateur rules. Break clean. Shake, boys. Come out fighting. The ice ball exploded, spraying his entire body with freezing, paralyzing streams of water, weighing down his arms, deadening his legs, squeezing his heart. Stick and run. Don't. The bell rang. He moved numbly forward on his stiff legs. Rivera's beady black eyes stared at him over a bent nose. Move, Alfred, for he walked right into it. A ton of concrete that slammed into his mouth. His arms flew up and he staggered backwards on his heels. The ropes burned into his back. The ice ball was gone. His legs felt like steel springs and his arms were whips. He bounced off the ropes, flickering jab ahead of him. Pop, pop! Into Rivera's face. Pop, pop! Right in the bent nose. He moved in with a sure hand. Rivera walloped him on the side of the head. Stick and run! Stick and run! Screamed Donatelli. Alfred danced back, sucking in quick, sharp breaths. Rivera was standing in the middle of the ring, his feet flat on the lumpy canvas, planted like a tree. Alfred circled around him, and Rivera turned, slowly and awkwardly, to keep facing him. Rivera wasn't going to move. He was just going to stand there. I'm going to have to go in and get him, thought Alfred. Stick, 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 and run! Screamed Donatelli, but his voice was lost in a light, rising chorus of boos. Get in there and fight, Brooks! Someone yelled, high-pitched and nasty. Off your bicycle! Go and fight! His body was slick with sweat as he circled Rivera, watching the telephone pole legs shuffle and turn the squat body. He darted in, pop, pop, and jumped back. Rivera's clumsy left hook missed his head by a foot. That's it, Alfred, screamed Donatelli. Just like that. In and out. In and out. Fight, you coward! Go in and fight! Stick and run! Stick and run! Yellow Belly, stand and fight! He darted in, pop, pop! Stand and fight, Yellow Belly, pop, pop! Off your bicycle. Move out, Alfred, move! Pop, pop! And he slipped Rivera's slow jab, pop, pop! And he drove into a right cross. Stand and fight! And he never saw the punch that slammed into his mouth, snapping his head back. The lights dazzled his eyes, and then a truck crashed into his belly, and a baseball bat blasted the side of his head. He looked up, and the referee was standing over him, waving a finger. 2, 3. The bell rang. He got up and turned around twice before he saw Bud frantically waving him into their corner. He dropped like a sack on the stool. It seemed like hours before his tongue pushed out the mouthpiece. And then 6 hands were moving over him. Thick, square hands pulling up on the elastic waistband of his trunks. Deep breath, Alfred, deep breath. Stick hands stabbing him into the muscles of his neck and back, and slim hands tilting the water bottle into his mouth. He gagged on the water and tried to spit it out in the bucket in one long stream, but it gushed out his water over Henry's shoes.
Silly, ain't it?
Dimly, he heard the 10-second warning buzzer. Stick and run, Alfred, Donatelli whispered in his ear. Don't listen to that crowd. No one's hitting them. The bell rang. Rivera was already out there, planted and ready. Stick and run, Alfred. Stick and run. He darted in. Pop, pop! Dance back. In and out. In and out. Jab. Duck. Hit and move. Circle left. Pop, pop! Circle right. Pop, pop! And he could feel Rivera's blowtorch breath, hot and heavy, against his chest. Stand and fight, Yellow Belly! Don't listen to the crowd. No one's hitting them. Pop, pop! In and out. Jab away. Circle left. Rivera's eyes were bloodshot and swollen. His thick arms were sagging. Jab and dodge. And run. Forget the combinations. 1 punch at a time. 2 jabs. Hit and run. Stick and move. Don't get too close too long. Ah! Go join the track team, Brooks! The bell rang. Smart boxing, Alfred, said Donatelli in his ear. Keep it up. Just like that. But don't talk. Just listen. The water arched neatly into the bucket. Henry shoved it in the mouthpiece. You won this round, Alfred. It's 1 each now. Stick and run. Stick and run. The bell rang. The crowd started whistling, piercing whistles that upset his concentration. Rivera was plodding after him now on slow, heavy feet. Pop, pop. Just stay 1 step ahead of him. Jab and jump away. Jab and hook and duck and under the swinging arm. Run home, you bum! In and out. 1 punch at a time. 2 jabs, and Rivera was grunting. As he tried to find Alfred in the dazzling light and the flying sweat. Pop, pop! Hit and run. Back to the jump, you coward! The booze flouted the ring, and the catcalls burned his ears, and the whistle sliced into his brain. Pop! Into Rivera's grasping face. A crumpled paper soda cup landed at his foot, and then another. Get in there and fight, black boy! The buzzer sounded. 10 seconds to go. Pop! Get in there and fight, black boy! Pop! You slave! And he drove in. Pop! Hook! Rivera's eyes were wild. Pop! And right cross. Stick and run, Alfred. Don't slug. Jab. Right hook. Left. Rivera tried to bring his arm up. Jab. The bell rang. Rivera slammed a short right uppercut to Alfred's groin. The winner by majority decision, Alfred Brooks! He barely heard it. His legs were soft rubber and a fire was raging in the lower part of his belly. They carried him back to the dressing room and he stretched him out on the table. Bud held a small bottle underneath his nose, and the fumes clawed up into his brain and cleared his head. I'm sorry, Brooks. Rivera was standing over him. I didn't mean to. Forget it, kid, snapped Donatelli. Anytime a fighter gets hit anywhere, it's his fault. The circle of faces grew. Spoon, Lou Epstein, Dr. Corey, Henry, Bub, the gray-haired man, the doctor. Fingers probed. Be sore for a day or two, but he's alright. Can't listen to the crowd, Donatelli was saying, far, far away. They just want to see blood and pain. Leave the boy alone, Vito. But he won, Mr. Donatelli, said Henry. Alfred won. That's not enough.